Hello, and thank you for joining us again here at the Oh No 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 podcast. Neil Collins took charge of just his sixth Rovers game yesterday, but there were already familiar themes on show. A dominant performance was paired with hard luck and missed chances to culminate in a 1-1 draw with Queen's Park, with Jack Hamilton's penalty cancelled out by a hugely deflected Liam McLeish strike. I am Duncan Cameron, and joining me for the debrief today, I have Scott Fleming, first of all. How are you, Scott?
Yeah, not too bad, Duncan. Just, as you say, it seems to be familiar this every weekend we're coming on and talking about deflected goals or bad luck. So, we'll see how we get on with this.
Yeah, this podcast was significantly more fun when we were winning every week, tell you that much. We've got Blair Hopcroft as well. How are you, Blair?
Yeah, same. This podcast used to be a right laugh. Now it's just like therapy, but we'll get there.
It is at least significantly cheaper. We've also got Graeme Meldrum. How are you, Graeme?
I'm good, thanks. It was great to be back at Starts Park for a game for the first time this season.
Good stuff. And rounding off today, we've got Robbie Weir as well. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. At least Zach Rudden didn't score, so we can take a bit of solace in that.
Yeah, our greatest fear. Right, let's not hang about. Let's just jump straight in on this one. So I make it 4 changes from the side that played at Capello. Dabo, Fordyce, Brown and Jameson coming in for Freeman, Murray, Matthews and Connolly. Now, I think the general kind of consensus amongst us, anyway, during the pre-match was looking for 3 of those. Dabo, Fordyce and Brown. And then Jameson, maybe just a little bit of a wild card in the sense of changing up those wide positions. I think we'd all picked a variety of different wingers in there. Robbie, anything in there that you were particularly surprised by or found notable? And in fact, include the kind of makeup of the bench in that as well, because there was 1 or 2 decisions to be made there.
Yeah, I was quite surprised that Freeman didn't make the bench. I've not listened to Neil Collins' post-match interview yet, but I've basically heard that it was a sort of choice that they decided not to have him on the bench just because they want more attacking players. So yeah, that was a bit of a shock. Other than that, a couple of knocks or sort of minor illnesses, I believe. Very positive to see Sam Stanton back on the bench. That's at least a very, very strong addition in terms of the squad overall. But yeah, generally I thought that the lineup was quite positive. We didn't see the switch, the 3 at the back, which caused a bit of mirth in the group chat, particularly with Scott there. He was nervously waiting, I'm sure, pacing about. But yeah, a familiar formation for us to kick us off.
And I think, to be fair, we've been talking a lot about getting players back and getting back to a stronger 11, and I felt like certainly the start of the game it was pretty positive. A fairly strong start to that first half overall. Would you agree with that, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I thought first 5 minutes, kind of both teams were a bit scrappy, and it took a few minutes to get going, but I thought once we got our foot on the ball and kind of started wanting to dictate the game how we want it to be played, I thought we looked pretty comfortable. And as you say, I think I just think we're back to now. I seen it last night. I don't know what game he was watching, but players back in their own positions, I think just shows like everyone looked comfy. So like I don't understand why we've been trying to. Obviously, we had injuries for a couple of games, and that was obviously trying things out in players in different positions. But I think going back to sort of a formation that we know, players know what job they're meant to do, everyone just looked comfortable. And so going forward into the game, I thought we looked good. Started creating enough chances to be scoring. I thought Jack Hamilton, especially in the first half, and you see it in the highlights a lot as well, that the amount of times that he actually won his header and actually went to one of our boys yesterday was like night and day compared to the amount of times he'll win the header, but it's either gone miles away for somebody or it's just gone to one of their players. But yesterday, everyone was coming off him and going to our boys, and it was all working out great. And you thought, this is going to be one of sort of Jack's like really good games here, where he's going to be involved in everything. And to be fair, I don't think he could have done anything more in that first half. He did everything that was asked of him, and he involved everybody, and Easton was getting close to him, which we've been asking for as well. So I think that first half in general, I thought we were definitely the better team, and Queen's Park were probably... I don't know if more than one goal would have been too harsh on them, but I think it couldn't have been really more than two. We didn't create loads of chances, but we'd done enough to be in the lead anyway.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think just in terms of the number of chances created, that could possibly be the most creative 45 minutes we've had all season. There weren't stacks and stacks of clear-cut opportunities, but there's shots at goal and guys moving around, and the keepers having to actually make saves, and that's significantly better than a lot of halves of football that we've seen. Graeme, I want to get your thoughts on Lewis Jameson in particular. I don't know that many of us were looking for him to start on that kind of right-hand side, but Neil Collins obviously did. What did you think to his performance yesterday?
I actually thought when you look at the lineup when he came through, I thought maybe he was playing in the 10, because he played in the 10 apparently in the testimonial and played really well. So I thought maybe he was playing there. But to see him on the right-hand side, I'm not convinced. Yeah, I'm not convinced. The boy's got pace. He's got raw pace. But there was a few times with Dabo that he looked as though he didn't know what to do. And there was a few times he looked like he didn't have a football brain, if that makes sense. Like, he didn't make the runs he was kind of looking to make. Now, he's done well to help with the goal. And that, but he's not a winger. And I think when Neil Collins he's asking his wingers to hug the touchline, and you can see that when we've got the ball. I'm not convinced. I don't even know if is he right-footed or is he left-footed? Because he kept on cutting inside on his left.
Very left-footed.
Aye, which is bizarre, because I think you're looking for your guy to go past your fullback and swing something in a more conventional sense. So, yeah, and I'm jumping forward a bit, but I think Callum Smith, when he came on, gave us more than Lewis Jameson gave us. I know it was he played. Sorry, he gave us more than what Pollock gave us because he was on the side of Pollock. But I look at somebody like Callum Smith, who you believe could play in that right hand side. I think he could offer us more than Jameson. I know Gibson was obviously ill, but works hard, does well, but is he going to create for us? Don't know. Jury's out on him.
I wonder if the motivation behind that isn't less about the creativity and more about trying to get someone who can finish, almost. In the same sense of Callum Smith being an early choice when you've got more orthodox kind of wingers on the bench. And I think inevitably, right, we're going to have to spend a little bit of time talking about Jack Hamilton and his travails in front of goal yesterday. And I mean, he's played 39 league games for the Rovers now, and he's scored 9 goals, 3 of which are penalties, 2 of which in the last couple of weeks. I think that has to come into the manager's thinking. When you're putting your number 9 out and you're looking at it and going, he's got the ability. Categorically, he's got the ability. But one of the things he's very good at is bringing other people into the game, as we saw in Bags yesterday. If the temptation then becomes, well, can I actually get guys who might be slightly more inclined to finish chances than just trying to create them? Like an Aidan Connolly scores goals, but he's trying to create chances. I wonder if you get to the point where you get too many guys trying to create chances for each other and very few of them actually they're trying to finish them. I wonder if that's maybe part of the motivation. Lewis Jameson has obviously played up front previously. If that's kind of part of it. Blair, give me your thoughts just on the same kind of theme. So the players that are available to be around Jack Hamilton and how that all kind of links together.
Yeah, I'd said through the week that I wanted Jameson playing in the 10. I'll kind of go back on myself slightly and say that I thought for the first 45 minutes it's the best I've seen of him, actually, for Lewis Jameson. I thought he was actually quite direct in a sense, but he actually looked far more comfortable coming in but not coming in the way that, Aidan Connolly does that thing where he gets to the box and he cuts in and then has a strike. Jameson seemed to look really comfortable doing it 20 yards further back. He looks really comfortable coming across the pitch on his left foot and pinging a pass across and finding feet. Jack Hamilton, it's frustrating because it's probably up there with his best game for us yet and his worst game for us yet.
Yeah.
At the exact same time. And it's like, I was sitting just before half time, I turned to one of my mates and I'm like, I don't know what Collins has done. I have no idea what it is, but he's making Jack Hamilton look so much better. He is getting a tune out of Jack Hamilton. He is winning headers. He is hassling people. He looks quick, which he didn't look before. He looks definitely quick across the ground. I'm like, he looks fit and strong and hungry. And I've said for a long time that I wondered if, under Ian Murray, if Jack Hamilton kind of got pass marks, or not pass marks, but maybe kind of not getting the criticism because we didn't create enough chances. I've said before, you couldn't look at a game and go, Jack Hamilton's missed 5 sitters. So, you can't necessarily say his goal return's not good enough. If we're not creating anything for him, what is he supposed to do? If all of his game is on the edge of the box, holding it up and passing Easton and stuff. But yesterday completely undid that for me. Completely undid it. Because we created loads for him and he didn't take any of it. And yet he was brilliant for at least 60 minutes. Actually, probably even 70 minutes. If you take the missed chances out of the game, he was great yesterday. I'm not sure Easton's the man to have off of him though. I think that's and he was a lot better at it yesterday. But I still think Jack Hamilton needs somebody with pace by him because he's good at winning those headers and flicking on and all that kind of stuff. Just a really frustrating thing. Really frustrating.
What he needs there is Lewis Vaughan.
Yeah.
Quite simple.
But don't we all?
Well, exactly, and that's obviously a really easy thing to say and just throw away, but it's also kind of true. Just that goal scoring ability as much as anything.
And he's got far more of it, Lewis Vaughan, than any other number 10 at this level. It's just it's ridiculous compared to any other number 10. You're not going to get nearly as many goals as Lewis Vaughan will offer you. So
I think we've spoken about this recently, where you get kind of strikers of two flavours at this level. You get the strikers who have the kind of pure goal-scoring talent, and they're at this level because they've got injuries, or they're not tall enough, or they're too slow. But fundamentally, they've got that goal-scoring ability that if you get the ball to them in the right place, they're going to score a goal. And then you've got the other strikers who are based on effort or physical assets. Guys like Jamie Gullen, who's all about effort and energy, and he scores goals based on being in the right place enough of the time, because he's in a lot of places over the course of 90 minutes. And he does his work and he harasses people. And you've got Jack Hamilton, who definitely has ability. I'm not writing him off by any means at all, but also, even when it's not going for him, he's big enough and he's good enough that he's still involved and all that kind of stuff. And really, I think one of the big issues we've got at the moment is even dropping into our midfield, we just don't have a lot of goal scorers in there. Like, Josh Mullen's a really good example. Josh Mullen's a great player at this level. He's a really, really good winger. Scored 2 goals last season, 1 goal last season. Aidan Connolly did not score a lot of goals. Scored twice at Capello. A couple more than that across the rest of the season. Easton and Stanton are the two that you could probably look at and say, well, they score, probably their fair share. But it feels like we're putting a lot of onus on Cody David to come in and be a goal scorer, almost to the exclusion of everything else. Basically, doesn't matter what else he does at this point. We actually just need somebody who can score some goals based on what it put on for them.
Going to say there, I'm really intrigued to see what Neil Collins does moving forward, because with Sam Stanton back, you're going to want to be having him in that sort of number 10 role, especially if Lewis Vaughan's out. But I feel like Dylan Easton's been better as a player for us when he's been played centrally. So I'm less sold on Easton being out wide. But I guess we don't have that issue in the next game because Easton's going to be suspended. So
I kind of wonder with Hamilton though, and I've said before, and as much as it was frustrating yesterday, I did say a couple of weeks ago we might have to put up with him missing a load of chances, but getting a run of games to get that fitness back and that sharpness back, because you can't recreate that. You can do as many shooting drills as you want on the training pitch. It does not recreate that moment in the box on a Saturday. And so there's also that bit of last season we brought in Rudden and Hamilton went downhill massively because he was kind of bit part and he was in and out the team all the time. And maybe yesterday was just a symptom of him getting closer to where he needs to be. He's now getting to the positions where he's getting those chances that the finishing will come. And I think that's probably the decision that Collins has to make, is whether or not he believes that the finishing will come. I'm on the fence, if I'm being honest. I really want it to be, but I'm kind of on the fence.
You don't know. It could be a player who just wants to be loved. Just by his management, just wants to know he's a number one centre forward. He's now getting that. I thought, like you, Blair, I thought yesterday he was excellent compared to what we were doing at Morton, where he was almost up there his cell. He's winning the ball and there's nobody around about him. We've got a lot of players closer to him. First half, I thought he was outstanding. But he was absolutely outstanding. It wasn't just head flicks, it was the wee kind of shouldery number that he was doing a lot of. I thought he was really good, really impressive. You know, it's stuff to build on. At least it's going up, I think, with Jack Hamilton. Not at the peak we wanted it to by the end of the game, but you can see him building as a better player.
I think really hoping that Stanton being back makes a huge difference. I can actually believe that it will make a huge difference. We've said for weeks now, as good as Easton has been in that number 10, it's not really doing the full package almost. And that's not a criticism. I've said, like, he's a wide player who's been asked to play centrally, and he's adapting to it and all that stuff. But Stanton understands where to be and what to do better, because that's his position essentially. And
he's also far more athletic and can get around the pitch far better as well, and that gives you it almost gives you an extra player at times as well.
Yeah, and you see sometimes where it's like Easton, when we've got the ball and we're into that final third, he wants to drift over to Pollock so that the two of them are then doubling up on the fullback. You don't always need that. Sometimes it's a case of you want the extra body in the middle so that there's somebody breaking there. And that's the other thing with Stanton is he's also, well, I think goes kind of unnoticed, but he's decent in the air as well, in the sense that he challenges for the ball in the air and gives defenders a question. So suddenly it's a whole different kind of thing for everybody to worry about.
I feel like as well with Stanton, he's just got the number of goals that we got from him coming late into the box last season was just massive. So like if we can get that back, I think it makes a huge difference when number of times we get the ball, we cut it back and you see it go through the other side, particularly over the first quarter of this season has been ridiculous. Number of times you just see the ball trundling out the other side and it's very, very frustrating because you're thinking you need someone to be getting onto that. But that's the type of situations that Sam Stanton thrives in. So yeah.
See, while we're on this kind of train of thought as well, just really quickly, if we're going to pull up Jameson for potentially not being a winger, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm not convinced Pollock's a winger. He's quick, he's nippy, he's physical and he's direct, but I'm not convinced he's a winger. I wonder if he could do a job in there. He's got that physicality, he's got that. I thought he was really physical yesterday, actually. I was really impressed with that. He did not give Cammy Kerr a fun afternoon in the slightest. But I'm still not convinced that getting down the outside and getting a cross in is his strength.
I feel like he had one big go at it where he kind of charged past Cammy Kerr and he just overran it slightly. Like he just put slightly too much on it and it ran out for a goal kick. And it was almost like he was like, that didn't work, I'll not do that again. I thought that was one of the best things he did. Like that.
Totally.
Nearly worked. Try it again. It's frustrating looking at yesterday because we did create a lot of chances in that first half compared to what we have been doing recently. So it almost feels a little bit like disingenuous to now be doing the big post-mortem about what's been going wrong, when actually, you know, apart from the ball ending up in the back of the net, actually a lot of things went right yesterday. But hopefully this is just, it's Neil Collins learning about his players, and players learning about Neil Collins, and kind of incremental improvements to become more of a sort of cohesive unit. And I think one big part of that, like the base of the midfield, I thought it was like night and day compared to a lot of games this season. And I mean, it's simplistic, but Scott Brown, basically.
Yeah.
Looked like he'd never been away, as far as I was concerned.
Oh, it's interesting. I actually didn't. I thought he was really good, but I thought he looked rusty, which actually filled me with confidence because I thought he was really good. But there was a couple of times he wasn't quite where he needed to be, or the passes weren't quite as slick as they kind of usually were. I don't think I'd go as far as he looked like he'd never been away. He was very good. Like, I'm not criticising his performance at all, but it actually filled me with a bit of hope that I think there's better to come. Like, I genuinely think that there's even more to come for Scott Brown in the next few weeks.
Well, I think that's fair. I was going to make the same point, or at least ask the same question about Callum Fordyce. So, Scott, give me your thoughts on both of them there. So, Scott Brown, Callum Fordyce back into the team in starting terms yesterday. Are you optimistic on that front, that those two will improve, as Blair says?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like Scott Brown, I think I would get maybe classed as being pretty biased, because I'm probably one last season that was really for Scott Brown, and I heard a lot of people go, "Oh, but Ross Matthews is a better player, and we need Ross Matthews in the team." And I was always kind of jumping to the conclusion that no, Scott Brown's a far better footballer than Ross Matthews. Whether that's something that the Rovers fans don't want to hear, considering we've had Ross Matthews for over 11 years, but I think it's came true in the last sort of half of last season when Matthews was fit, and then again since Brown's been out this season, we've actually seen that we've missed Scott Brown, and that Scott Brown is a better footballer. So I think the fact we've got him back now, he's able to be a leader on the park with just showing what he can do, and he is. I get where Blair's coming about. I think he was a wee bit rusty at times yesterday, but yeah, I thought he definitely had pass marks. I thought he was really good yesterday. I thought he gives that energy that, obviously, I'm not saying that Sean Byrne doesn't give you energy, but he gives you a different sort of, he controls a game more, whereas Scott Brown's more all action, but also can control a game when he needs to. And I think he gives you that balance of, and then also can join an attack. Had a few shots yesterday, especially in the second half, that obviously if he's maybe just got his head over it a little bit more, he possibly keeps it down, and it gives the keeper something to think about. But and then Callum Fordyce, I think he just seems like a really sensible head at the back. He seems somebody that just kind of that little bit more calmer than Ewan Murray, because Ewan Murray, although he's a good centre half, he can be a wee bit rash at times. And I think that Fordyce is actually the opposite of that. And I think that he really thinks about a game. And it doesn't surprise me that he was an assistant manager last season, because I think he really knows the game tactically and just seems to be able to control his team. I mean, I think it might have been Robbie or somebody else that said it, but you can physically hear him barking orders at players on the park. And and it comes through on Rafe TV as well, quite clearly, that he's telling people where to go, and he's telling people, you need to be here, you need to be here. He's telling Paul Hanlon, who's had 500 games or whatever at SPL and been capped at international level. So, like, he's not afraid. It doesn't matter who you are. He'll tell you where you need to be. And I think that can only help Collins to have, like, almost a second, I'm not going to call him a second manager, but almost a second captain then on the park that can help you out and show what's going on. But yeah, I thought the two of them, it was great to have them back, and I just hope that the two of them can stay fit, because I think we're going to do more good than bad with them two on the park.
Yeah, I think, again, it's a positive trend, you would hope. Getting them back should only help kind of improve. Let's just pick through a couple of the incidents from that first half. So there's Easton has a couple of shots. One goes wide, one we force a save. Both of them, he's taken them quite quickly after a layoff from Jack Hamilton. There's two one-on-ones that are both relatively similar. Jack Hamilton with the first, and then Lewis Jameson with the second. Robbie, give me your thoughts on those two. Forgivable, either of them? You really need to be scoring those at this level? What do you think?
Yeah, I'd be in the latter camp of really should be burying those. Much like everyone else has said so far, I think that Jack Hamilton, if you took away those two big other chances, you would come away from that saying he's man of the match criteria in terms of his performance and how well he'd done with maybe a couple other players. But yeah, should be really finishing that. The disappointing bit was the sort of second touch that he takes, which just takes it. Callum Ferry does quite well because he sort of regresses back towards his line and then he sort of pulls the trigger and springs forward where he needs to. But yeah, you would be hoping that Hamilton would be burying that opportunity. Again, I'm sure it's a lot easier to sort of look at in hindsight. But yeah, especially given the sort of one that you saw against Morton, you look at the highlights and he gets through in a similar situation. So he's getting a shot away this time, but you really need to be doing better, I think, if you're a number 9 in positions like that. But much like the others, I'm not at the position where I'm writing Jack Hamilton off. I think that there's probably a lot of pressure on him now that we've got David coming in terms of the new centre forward. But yeah, Jamieson's one, I think that was a lack of physicality, and I would have thought that he maybe could have done better with his pace to get away from the guy. But again, when it's a centre back and you're tussling for the ball, there's always that chance that they're going to get ahead of you. But yeah, overall, I felt that in the first half we created a lot, but then at the same time, you've always got that in the back of your head, we're not taking these chances, and Queen's Park will probably score with their first shot that they get, and that was my sort of major worry.
The Jameson one, I think it's touch that lets him down, and first of all, it's a brilliant header from Jack Hamilton. Really thought we were going to spend a lot of time slagging him off today. We've been actually very effusive in our praise. It's a brilliant header, which puts Jameson through, and his first touch is to kind of take with his stomach almost, and then he tries a second touch and doesn't get the contact he needs, which then necessitates a third touch, and that's what lets the defender in. I think he's unfortunate that he's going in, but it's actually, I think it's because he's so left-footed as well, that if he takes either one of those touches on his right foot, he's maybe slightly better off. But
just couldn't get out of his feet, eh?
Aye, exactly. The Hamilton one, I think he possibly has to just take earlier before the goalkeeper set himself. But Callum Ferry is just apparently only incredible against us.
Yeah. I was going to say that. I agree with Robbie. I thought the Hamilton one was definitely good goalkeeping. He timed that so well. He almost let Hamilton take another touch and then sprung on him.
I wondered if Hamilton... It's the second touch because the first touch is absolutely perfect. It's the second one that's gone probably a couple of metres further than he actually needs it to go. I wonder if by that time, because by that time you can see Ferry's made the decision, right, I'm going. Could he have gone round him instead of just trying to slot underneath him? That's what, when I watched it back in the highlights this morning, I thought, I think there's a chance he could have easily gone to the side of him, and then Ferry's got to make the decision of, am I taking him down, or am I going to get the chance to get the ball, or can Hamilton then just slide it across once he's gone round him? But yeah, obviously, he's probably got 10 different things that, right, what am I going to do with the ball by that time? But yeah, it's just when you look back at it, you wonder, could he have gone and done something else than what he has done?
I think as well, for Jack Hamilton's position, if you're trying to get as much power into that as possible and you're going near post, it's always, you're hoping that the keeper's going to spill it, or it might, again, it'll go, if you're not getting the goal, then you're going to cause a nightmare for the keeper to clear up. But again, unfortunately for us, it's just been palmed away and it's gone out for that corner, frustratingly. On you go, Blair.
I was just going to say, I read it just slightly differently in the sense that I thought that second touch was pretty much where Jack Hamilton thought he was going to be shooting. It was like he'd almost lined himself up to hit a shot and the keeper hadn't come yet. So he's thinking, I'll take another touch. And literally, as he takes that touch, Ferry springs on him. And because the touch is just that wee bit heavy, he's up against it kind of thing. But I thought Ferry was really good yesterday again. That save, I mean, we glossed over it quite quickly, but the save from Easton as well. Like, he was, I don't know if he saw it late or if he was waiting on the bounce, but his reaction speed is so good for a keeper at this level.
Yeah, definitely. Probably the other big incident in the first half is the penalty. Graeme, any doubts whatsoever as to the correctness of the decision?
No.
And nice little bit of football though to actually win that one.
It was good stuff. It was nice wee bits of passing. You could see there was no options at one point for Easton. So he kind of checks back and then he goes for it. And it's as blatant as penalties you're going to see. I don't know why after it's awarded the guy goes across and has a word with Easton. I have no idea. That was blatant. So definitely stick on. No debates about it. Definite penalty.
It comes from something that, Blair, you mentioned earlier about Jameson being quite happy to come inside and sort of... Yeah. I think the thing is, coming inside with his head up. So he does it before as well. There's an incident that's immediately prior to that in the highlights, the same thing, where he comes inside. But as you say, unlike Connolly, who you know when he comes inside, is that kind of Joe Cardle like single mindset of I'm going to come inside, I'm either going to shoot or I'm going to cross. But fundamentally, it's the minute I cut inside, I've already decided what I'm going to do. Jameson is doing it with, like, he's happy to come inside and keep coming if he needs to, and he's looking for a pass. And the one he plays the reverse pass, it's unlucky that it doesn't actually end up in a better chance for Dabo. And for the penalty, again, it's patience that really brings it, rather than just trying to whip a cross in, a couple of little passes, and then it's very similar to the penalty we got at Falkirk, where it's Easton knowing exactly what he's doing. Just quick feet, drawing the foul. I don't know what the defender's claiming for either. So that gives us the lead for half time. I agree, Scott, what you're saying before. Really, I think on balance of play, a 1-goal lead is the least we deserved there. Robbie, going in at half time, were you more impressed than you thought you would be with the Rovers, and were you less impressed than you thought you would be with Queen's Park, given their results up till now?
I mean, not really. I think that you've got to keep in mind that from a Queen's Park perspective, they're missing the centre-back that they got from Califistle. Is it Nikolai Ajur?
Yes.
They had Jack Turner, who's always looked really impressive against us, and of course Dom Thomas as well was completely missing. So from their point of view, they're probably thinking, oh, we're going to do well to come out and get a performance here where we're creating a lot of chances, whereas Rovers, we're pretty much back at full strength. And with all due respect to Queen's Park, I don't think there's anything in that team where you should be sort of shitting yourself effectively. You shouldn't be looking at that side and sort of saying, oh no, it's Queen's Park coming to town, we're going to have it's going to be a long afternoon for Rovers. And again, I'm sure you can say that for quite a lot of the teams in this league, but yeah, I felt that we were well worth a lead. We put in a really positive performance, a lot of chances created, players showing the energy to try and get forward. There were a few moments where maybe we would play ourselves into trouble, our sort of wing backs getting closed down very quickly, but by and large, I felt that we were stroking the ball about the back nice and confidently. You could see the impact that Fordyce was having, the sort of experience of Dabo as well in there, and that, yeah, generally you were feeling like, look, we could kick on and carry on. But as I say, always that fear that they're going to get an opportunity at some point and how is it going to fall. They weren't by any means out of the game, sort of in a similar way to maybe that you thought that Hamilton were a few weeks back, but yeah, generally we were in control, and I thought that we would go on, and it was looking positive for the second half.
Yeah. First kind of 15 minutes of the second half, Blair, Rovers maybe not quite meeting the standards they'd set in the first half. Like a quieter start to the second half.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I thought we looked okay. I thought the intensity had dropped off a little bit, which was frustrating. And I did wonder if the game was kind of crying out for a change. I thought that Pollock dropped off quite significantly in that period of time. I thought Jameson did to an extent as well. Hamilton was starting to look a bit, not leggy, because that's no fair. He's still kind of buzzing about and stuff, but he was clearly doing a lot of work in that first half, and you can only keep that up for so long. So I did wonder if it was maybe time for a change, but even at that, we still looked comfortable. Like they never really carved us open or created a huge amount. I was going to say as well, just really quickly, we've not mentioned them to this point, but Big Kev was brilliant yesterday. He was, and do you know what? Everything that we talked about in that pre-match about, like we had the chat about should he get dropped or not, because it had been spoken about, and we all unanimously agreed it wasn't. But every question you could raise of him, it was like he'd read them all and thought, right, I'll show you. He was commanding his box, he was coming out, he was punching, his kicking was really good. He even came out at one point, there was a through ball. I think Ferry had taken it quick, and he came out, and the whole South Stand went, oh shit. And he just dealt with it. He dealt with it really calmly and really, really clearly. I thought it was a really commanding performance across the pitch. And it wasn't that anybody was doing anything particularly wrong. It was just like the intensity level had started to dip a little bit. And this is where I kind of feel from Collins, because obviously at 60 minutes, we're about to talk about the goal. And he then makes a substitution. And actually, I do kind of wonder if the goal hadn't come, the substitution still would have happened. And then, we might have kicked on and got something from it, but it was like he just waited a little bit too long. But it's not like he waited till 80 minutes or whatever to make a substitution. It was 60 minutes in, so just a frustration.
I mean, to kind of combine those 2 points, I think we've spoken previously in other games this season about like not giving the opposition any encouragement, which we've done a couple of games with massive red cards and all that kind of stuff, or chucking away a silly goal. Although the intensity dropped, which I think is a really good way of framing it, because nobody did anything wrong necessarily. There was no like big stupid mistakes, any of that kind of stuff. Queen's Park weren't suddenly on top of the game, but for 15 minutes we just maybe weren't quite at the same level. And then it's a massive slice of luck, bad luck, that actually gives them, well, more than just encouragement, gives them the equaliser. I think it's also unfortunate that possibly Callum Fordyce's only poor touch of the whole afternoon kind of contributes to that goal. And even then, doesn't look terrible as it happens. Like, so the ball comes to him, he just kind of has a swing at it, and it runs out towards the towards the touchline out on the far side. You think, not much in this. Zach Rudden just swings about at it to put the ball into the middle. It's a decent pass in the end. He finds
the best thing he did all afternoon.
I was actually going to say, I think that's a wee bit harsh, Duncan. I think it was a really, really good pass, actually. I was genuinely, at that moment, I went, oh, yeah, bugger, what a ball. Like, I thought it was really clever. And I genuinely, and I could be wrong because I'm a big critic of Zach Rudden's, I thought he meant it. I genuinely did.
Well, I mean, I think he meant it. I don't know that he necessarily knew exactly that there was somebody there. I think that's a case of, he gets all the credit because there is somebody there, but I don't know that he necessarily, I don't think it was a pinpoint pass. But either way, it is what it is. I think the next touch for the boy that actually receives the pass is very good. The fact that he turns back rather than, I think a lot of players would have just swung about at it from where they were. But then it's just, there's literally nothing you can do about that.
And it's exceptionally unfortunate as well that it was Hanlon again, because he had the deflection at East End Park. Like, it's not that the guy's doing anything wrong. It's just, what can you do?
That's it. I mean, he's got no chance to react to it at all. Like it's hitting him before he's had a chance to set himself or anything like that at all. He's getting back into the right position. 70% of the time that's going to hit him and bounce back. And 20% of the time it's going to spin off and go wide of the goal, and it just so happens that it completely takes it away from the goalkeeper. Nothing the goalkeeper can do about it either. He's covering the shot, and I think quite capably. I don't think without the deflection, I don't think there's any chance that ends up in the back of the goal.
And just to have a quick point about Zach Rudden as well, I think that yesterday probably exemplified for all the criticism that Jack Hamilton's probably going to get for that performance. I think if you came away from that game and you were asking a neutral fan in any other championship club, which forward are you taking out of those two? It's going to be Jack Hamilton. Like, he's obviously not buried the two chances that have came up. Took the penalty really, really well. I mean, Zach Rudden's contribution was one pass, and he generally looked like that baby giraffe that we know and love. That's been mentioned before.
No, he found himself a first touch yesterday. There was about 3 or 4 times where I was like, the ball's coming to him, and I'm thinking, yes, here we go. And he actually took the ball down. I'm like, you shitbag. You absolute shitbag.
Yeah, I thought
enjoyed
he was fine, really, over the piece.
I enjoyed Ian Latto's shout to him, where he shouted, like, the ball, it was a cross. I don't think it was a corner, I think it was a cross, and, like, Rudden, like, completely fluffed it. Like, the header flies backwards up the pitch away, and he just screaming out, like, good defensive header, Rudden. Rudden laughs, and then he remembers, like, realises, like, actually, that's really, really terrible form. And jogs off with an angry face.
I quite enjoyed the Rudden of it all, actually. I have to say, the shithousery and the clapping the fans and running about like a tube. And my favourite bit of the whole Zach Rudden experience yesterday was the booking that he bought for Sean Byrne in the first half, which, to be fair, was a booking. It was a booking all day. But he's rolling about on the floor. As soon as the yellow card, he springs up and runs away again. I was
brilliant.
like,
love it.
Oh.
It's a shame he wasn't better for us, because I really want to like him.
Totally.
He seems like a good guy. Right, just to kind of... Well, so that puts us at 1 each. As you say, Blair, a couple of minutes after that, we do get Sam Stanton back. Graeme, how did you feel Sam Stanton reacclimatised to things, coming back into the squad there?
It wasn't vintage, but it was definitely a step in the right direction. I think him, as we've said earlier, him playing off Hamilton will be a lot more effective than Easton playing there. He's all over the pitch. He's more direct. And he linked up pretty well. I know there was a couple of wee tweaks with the formation that we were doing at that stage, but it wasn't vintage, but it was maybe 80% of where Sam Stanton normally is. You can see him actually screaming. I think the half volley that Hamilton takes as well, you can see him almost screaming that he was looking for a layoff there. Because again, as Robbie says, he's just coming to the edge of the box just at that point. So definitely the hunger there, got about the pitch well. More than happy that he's back.
I think you can see what he's going to give you again now that he's back. I just think he's just said it before, but I think he's the most difficult to replace. In the squad that we've got at the moment. So fingers crossed it's a good run of games that we can get out of him from this point on. We do then have, a couple of these Hamilton chances as well. One bigger than the other, as you say. Kind of half volley at the back post. It's a slightly trickier chance than I remembered it being, but still, Scott got to be scoring that.
At this level especially, you can't be passing up chances like that. I mean, considering we've been a team that's been really lacking in creating chances, and as you say, yesterday we actually got, I think Callum Ferry, I read he'd made 7 saves yesterday. So like, he was busy yesterday for an average game, and so I think when you get a chance like that, you have to be taking it, or at least at the absolute minimum, make him make a decent save. Like that's the complete minimum. The fact he's just kind of half leaning back and then just left his boot out and it's just hit his boot and just went over the bar. You're just like, well, it kind of just sums up the fact that we've had a lead. It's gone back to 1-1. Whether it's unfortunate as well, and then it's just that happens. You just go, well, today's just going to be another one of these days where we're just going to not score again, and it's going to be a game of missed chances and hard luck stories again. But at the end of the day, we've got to start, whether these players start owning up to it or not, but we've got to start taking these chances. Otherwise, whether we like it or not, we're going to be looking over our shoulders rather than up sooner rather than later if we don't start burying the ball into the net.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like I've watched a lot of games recently where we haven't created any chances, and yes, they created So many chances. And it just seems inexplicable that, like, when you compare that game to the Falkirk game, and in both of them we just managed to score one penalty, but the difference between the two is massive, and it's...
I would, to be fair as well, I would also say, like, I didn't go to the Morton game, but like the Livingston game and the Accies game, both we created more chances than I would say the opposition did. And it was just, it's just tedious. That's the only word I could describe it as. Just very, very tedious.
You could argue the same first half, Morton, to an extent. We were definitely the better side in the first half, I thought. And we dropped off massively at the start of the second half, which that's a bit of a concern. Like, I mean, if we're dropping off that much straight after half time, like, there's got to be something that we can look at changing or do about that. That's, what's that?
Just keep them out on the pitch at half time. Didn't bother about team talks or anything like that. Just keep them doing running up and down.
Do you know, you're joking about that? I remember when Jimmy Nicholl first came in, he actually did that. He would, instead of the 15 minutes half time, he would have them at 5 minutes before the end of half time. Because when he first came in, we were doing really good first half, and then we just nosedived second half. So he started doing that to see if it worked. I think the first time we did it, we got gubbed 5-3 by Ayr, so obviously it didn't work.
Let's go do that then.
but that's one of the daft things that he looked at changing as well, because we're dropping off, right, so they're out, they're warming up, here we go.
We have been, I think, quite consistently poorer second halves than we have first halves this season. Including like the Potter games and the Murray game as well.
Down at Ayr is the best
in terms
example
of
of
like
it.
Goals conceded versus goals scored. We're pretty much scoring all our goals in the first half and chucking them all away in the second half.
I think the difference yesterday though was like the Ayr game and to an extent the Morton game. You could argue that the other team came out and hit the ground running and we kind of didn't react to it quick enough. I really didn't feel that Queen's Park did that yesterday. It was it was like we thought, well, game's done, we'll just see this out. It's such a daft way to kind of, I'm sure that's not what they were thinking, it's just a natural thing that happens, but it just seemed to be that the intensity disappeared.
I think
so quickly.
Callum Davidson did make like subtle tactical changes, I think, in terms of like the sort of diamond that he had in midfield, seemingly. And like, I mean, it's a two-sided thing, isn't it? You don't really pay too much respect in terms of what the opposition manager does. You're kind of like, what's happening with us? Why aren't we reacting in this way? Obviously, of course, over the piece you can argue from
no disrespect. I actually think Queen's Park are a decent side.
I
think they're really well organised
too. And that's like they were always in that game. As much as like chances created, it was well down. A huge difference between the two. Like we said it beforehand, you can see how well drilled they are. You can see that like it's organisation and cohesion. That's their watchword. Like that's what they're all about. And you could see that all the way through. We then have the final big, well, there's two, I suppose, but the big incident is the penalty shout, which for a team who were 9 games into the season and we've only scored goals that aren't penalties in one of them, so another penalty would have been nice. This is our primary our primary source of joy. Big penalty shout. It's Cammy Kerr, isn't it? Who dives into block with a flailing arm. I could pick any one of you. I suspect the answer is going to be the same. Blair, any part of you that believes that shouldn't be a penalty kick?
No, not in the slightest. It's the most stonewall penalty you're going to get all day long. I just thought it was really, really poor, like to not get it. But by the same token, and it's going to sound, I'm going to sound all Roy Keane here. It shouldn't have mattered. Like it shouldn't have mattered. We had enough chances to bury that game 7 or 8 times over. And if we're relying on penalties to do it, it is a bit worrying. Like that's where we're at. But no, it's 100% a penalty. Like it's not even debatable. And I'm not sure if it's the referee's angle or if he just doesn't see it. But we've been penalised with those a couple of times. I think it was maybe Ian Lato that said on Twitter about it's going to be one hell of a second half of the season when these things all start leveling themselves out. I just like your luck goes against you. You know, the deflection for the goal, brutal. But you
It's
just
the
didn't like
polar
your beat.
opposite of last season, like the first half
It
of
is.
last season, when everyone was like, "Oh, I know," and we've said this numerous times before, Blair. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's lucky Rafe Rovers,
Aye.
etc., from like August right through to January. It's just all about lucky Rafe Rovers, but nobody's saying, "Oh, Rafe Rovers have been really unlucky here." Like it's just it totally changes depending on your circumstances.
I think the thing with that, it's just like it's further away, but it's really similar to the one that we were penalised for in the playoffs as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Where, like, it's all about the language that's in the rules and everything. It's all about body shape and all this kind of stuff. His arm's out from his body. It's just a penalty kick. As you say, Blair, the only thing can be the referee's not seen it. His angle just isn't there. Like, if you see that, it's a penalty kick. Just really hard to
There
take.
was a few yesterday though with handballs, because there was the attacking handballs, so not shouting for a penalty, but there was the one where in our box in the first half, the boy basically palms the ball to the floor and he just plays on. And then there was one, I'm sure there was one later than that. Was it Easton maybe did the same thing? Somebody, was it Easton?
5 minutes apart. So I'm glad you brought this up. I wanted to talk about this. This is where the people who make the rules have made it really difficult for referees and made it stupid, to be quite honest with you. So the way that the rules are worded now, basically, in fact, I've got them here, I'll tell you what it says. So it's not a handball offence if a player heads, kicks or plays the ball with another part of their body and it then hits their own hand or arm, right? So to take that bit, first of all, the boy who's in our box and Easton's, that were about 5 minutes apart, they both fall into that category. Because the ball, both of them, it hits their foot, spins up, hits them in the hand. The rules, crystal clear, that's not a handball offence because it's hit your own body and then hit off your hand. But there are brackets, and the brackets say, unless the ball goes directly into the opponent's goal or the player scores immediately afterwards. So forget the Easton one, but you think about that one that was in our box. The ball comes in, it hits the boy's foot, spins up and hits his hand. You can see the referee goes to blow for it and then stops and he goes, actually, no, hang on a second. I know my rules. I'm the referee. It's hit his foot, then hit his hand. That's not a handball. But as the ball drops again, if the boy had swung his boot at it and put it in the top corner, what wasn't a handball would have then become a handball because he's scored. But if he has the same shot and Kevin Dabrowski makes a brilliant save and tips it over the bar, it is a corner kick because it's no longer a handball again. So the act of scoring a goal after the ball has hit a hand can change whether or not it's a handball. Now,
Why
I'm
are
not
the people
here
who
to
make these rules complete tubes?
like. I'm not here to stick up for referees.
I know, but like if you get a
difficult.
corner and then you score from it, like it's clearly came from a handball, and it's too late. It's just
That's as I say. There's like when that ball hits that guy's hand in the box, if he's thinking about all these rules in his head at the same time, he's actually got to think, I can't shoot now, or at least I can't score. Like almost as the ball's dropping after hitting his hand, the best he can do is get a corner. And there's some kind of grey.
If he lays it off to somebody and they rifle it in,
So this is where
it's not a penalty.
There's
It's
a
not
bit of a kind
handball,
of
sorry.
grey area in this because it's about all the rules say is if you immediately score a goal. So if you punch the ball in, right, the ball hits your hand and then goes in the goal. That's unequivocal. You can't score a goal with your hand. But it's if it goes directly into the goal or immediately afterwards. But what's immediate? Like if a ball hits my hand, it drops, and I pass it to you, is that enough for that to no longer be immediate? Or if it's all in the one pass you play, is that great? So this is the problem with referees. It's the problem with VAR is you get guys who are having to look up the bloody rules to be like, what is this going to happen? I think there was questions around the same thing with Aberdeen had a goal ruled out yesterday. And I know that they played 12 minutes of injury time in that game. I assume quite a lot of it was because they were trying to work out whether or not the handball was a handball or not.
No, it was because Celtic weren't winning. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
But just while I've got the IFAB laws of the game up, just to remove any doubt about that, penalty shout at the end. So a handball offence is committed when the ball touches your arm, touches the ball with their hand or arm when it is in a position that makes their body unnaturally bigger, and that position is not the result of their body moving fairly as part of play. So I think that's where, like, you're more than entitled to dive in to try and block a shot, but if your arms are out the way, then that's where
was his arm not? Was his arm not? Was it his arm above him or below him?
It was kind of like just above where it normally would sit, I would say. But
is it not his? Is it not his landing arm? Is it his?
So he turns.
It is his landing arm
across.
No, I can't.
So there's a specific bit in the. Again, we'll go to the IFAB handbook. There's a specific thing in that says it's not an offence where a player falls and the ball hits their supporting arm, which is between their body and the ground. But that's not the case here, because first of all, he's not falling. He is diving in to try and block it, and it's not between his body and the ground. His arm is up as he turns.
Too much for a simpleton like me. Just give a handball, point to the spot, give a penalty for our one that was or their one that was up our end. Just who cares? Just flag it our way. It's far too magnanimous here towards referees.
We go on all the time
as
well. We always go on about saying how we didn't want VAR in the Championship, or when we go up, or if we go up, we're like, oh, we didn't want to be involved in games like that. And correct, I think it's a nonsense VAR, but it's decisions like that where it would have got overturned yesterday and it would have been a penalty, because what, as Duncan rightly said, in the playoff final against Ross County, Ewan Murray did the exact same thing as Cammy Kerr did, and it was almost just at a different part of the box. It was the exact same thing happened. So it would have been a penalty yesterday had VAR been involved, and it was a Premiership game. So I agree that it definitely was I think the referee's got a player sort of in his way or something, that he's not clearly seen it, and he's clearly thought, well, I can't quite clearly see it, so I can't give it if I've not seen it. I then wondered whether, because you can't really see it for the highlights, if something like that, because Cammy Kerr's probably on the last sort of line of any defence there, could the linesman have helped him out? Because I think the linesman will have had a vision of that if he's going by, he's looking for offside anyway, so he'll be looking along that line. That was my only other thing. Could he have potentially helped him out there?
Yeah, Stevenson was chipping away at the line for exactly that, actually.
Yeah.
Good. Just after it.
It's just, I realise that there's not a great benefit to getting the rule book out, but I do think this is where we've been taken to, because how often when you're in the stand, something like that happens and people are turning to each other going, I don't know what the rule is anymore. It's actually helpful sometimes to go, what is the rule? What actually is it at this moment in time? Because they keep changing it constantly with silhouettes and the bit that I didn't read about what is and isn't an armpit. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, you should... I think that I have a kind of fundamental belief, which is that if you're watching a game of football with some football supporters, they know what a handball is and what isn't. Like, you see the ball gets rifled into the box, the guy's got his hand across his stomach, it hits his hand, but it would have hit his body anyway. Everybody watching it's like, you can't give a penalty for that. And then guy's standing, he's got his hand out, the ball hits his hand, it would have gone the goal. Otherwise, everybody goes, right, that would have been a penalty. There's like a kind of innate understanding of what a handball is and isn't. And it's when they've tried to write it all down and codify it and stuff that they end up with these creating problems for themselves. But actually, all of that was to say that I thought the guy in our box, I actually think the referee's got that right. If you go by what the rules are, which obviously you should. But the penalty, I think there's no defence for. I think that is categorically a penalty. The only thing I can think is that he hasn't seen.
That's the thing about VAR again, is the fact that they've taken all the referees that used to do the second tier and they're now plumped down behind computer screens to look over decisions in the top flight, and we get a raft of mediocre referees that have came up from League 1 and League 2 and below, and they basically bumped up substandard referees all up a degree. Again, I'll go back to what Blair said though. you can't use that as an excuse, because ultimately we had the chances to win the game and we didn't take them. And that's the
before we get flooded with Mbappe gifts, like that was not why we didn't win the game yesterday.
Yes, I was about to say,
absolutely.
Didn't lose it because of that.
100%.
Yeah.
The other thing about
lose it
penalties
at all,
as well is
Nah, well, it just feels like it.
yeah. How many times did Cammy Kerr fall over?
Oh, great.
This is bizarre, because I heard on the radio yesterday morning there was a stupid quiz, right? What are Dundonians got the smallest of in the whole of the UK? And apparently Dundonians got the smallest feet, right? So he's not tripped over his feet every time he's fallen over, or is he unable to stand up because his feet are too wee? Because it must have been about 5 or 6 times he fell down, including the one where he screamed like a newborn Wayne and got the free kick for it. It was just unbelievable. A professional football player, obviously you try and use every advantage you can get, but it was verging on the ridiculous with him yesterday. Absolutely.
See, before we get to the point where I have absolutely no way that I can back this up, what I am going to say is, up until what we're about to talk about, and the penalty, which, to be fair, if we're saying he maybe didn't see or whatever, I actually didn't think the ref was that bad yesterday. And a lot of the conversation seemed to be about how he was like the worst referee ever and it's cost us. I genuinely thought he did the basics pretty well.
Until
the game
penalty,
flowed until the penalty.
Apart from the
and
penalty
then
and the red card and the...
Yeah.
I think there's always a degree of rose-tintedness with these sort of conversations in terms of, like, you see the decisions for your team and you're very, like, there'll be a lot of bits that you're sort of outraged about, but then you don't see it from the ones that, from the Queen's Park perspective, that they'll probably be like, oh, that was an absolute howler, or how's he not given this, or this has happened, and that's shocking.
Now, to be fair, mounted a slight defence of the referee there for one of those handballs, mostly so that I could just really have a go at him for that, for the red card at the end here. And I realised this is the most partisan position that I could possibly adopt on this, but I'm kind of kidding myself that this would be my opinion anyway. If it was a non-Rovers player, actually, it's really bad refereeing to end up sending off Dylan Easton at the end there. And now again, I realise that's not his job. His job is not to protect Dylan Easton or to forgive players for doing stupid stuff, which fundamentally there's some stupid stuff happening there. But I think it's really unnecessary. Like, so basically the whether it's a foul or not, I think is up for debate. Personally, don't really think it is, but I could see how you could think that's a foul. It's
not the worst decision.
One thing I would say as well is Easton's own decision making before it. Maybe he could have picked a different option rather than try to run it for a corner. Like, whether he could have maybe taken a different route. Again, it's all sort of after the fact, but yeah, everything after is just a bit of a farce. Again, I'm sure you can put some...
I'll come down to the laws of the game again, though. Like, I know we're about to talk about because ultimately, as much as I'm with you, Duncan, and I am, it was really stupid. It by the letter of the law, I think the referee probably did the right thing. But what you're looking for is somebody to kind of look at it and be a bit more kind of pragmatic about the whole thing. But then I look at the one, I don't even know when it was in the second half, but the one where Dylan Easton's breaking out and the boy just wipes him out completely, right? By the letter of the law, that's a yellow card. I'm sorry, how is that the same offence as Dylan Easton punching the ball? Like, it's a nonsense.
So the thing for me with this, and again, I really appreciate that this is just kind of desperation, but like the referee, he's there, obviously, he's there to enforce the rules, he's there for player safety and all this stuff, right? So that incident in the corner makes an honest decision. He thinks it's a foul, right? Fine. Actually, I'm totally prepared to go with that. Personally, I probably don't, but fine, right? Gives a foul. Dylan Easton, quite clearly, doesn't think it's a foul, and he's entitled to his opinion. And he reacts badly and he punches the ball away or whatever, right? Fine, I think that's a booking. Fine. But the referee then, so whether he says anything, I think if Dylan Easton has accused the referee of cheating or something, right? Red cards, fair enough. I suspect he hasn't. I suspect he's just shouted, sworn, generally. The only thing at risk there is the referee's feelings effectively. And again, right, I can hear myself as I say this. Would I say this if it had gone the other way? I doubt it. But it just seems like that there should be more weight given to the fact that it's the last minute, they're chasing the game, he's clearly frustrated, and you've already booked him. It feels like a more, and maybe they wouldn't, but I feel like a more experienced referee, like your kind of top level referees, are more than prepared to just look at that and go, right, we'll just call that frustration. And it's because I think it's understandable frustration.
Yeah.
Even though the referee obviously thinks, I thought that was a foul, you don't. You should be able to understand that's why he's annoyed, because he doesn't think it's a foul. He's stepped over the line, so you book him. Almost that's an incident of dissent in and of itself. Now, I think the thing with this, and actually there seems to be a bit of, I don't know, disagreement or lack of clarity here. I think it's a straight red card. From looking at watching that, it looks like he books him for punching the ball away and then gives him the straight red card, which, I mean, maybe he has said something that's fundamentally unacceptable. And if he has, then I think that's fair enough.
But even still, why can't the referee just haul him back and just say, look, you can't be talking like that? Like, but even though you're frustrated.
It's the letter of the law, 2 or 3 times, though.
Fuck the letter of the law.
During the game, the referees, in the first half,
it's a red card.
Had to stop with Easton and talk to him and tell him to calm down.
Yep.
Then again, the second half, the referee's probably just gone, I'm getting whatever I'm getting for this. I don't need to take this anymore. Yeah? Now, with it being a red card, you can appeal it. If it was a second yellow, you couldn't appeal it. Now, get the referee's report and appeal it. If that's what the Rovers want to do, they can do that. If it was a second yellow, they couldn't do that and they're snookered. So they can ask for the referee's report, they can get the referee's report and put an appeal in if they want. And if it's just that, there was a suggestion of this in the general direction, so I sent him off. Or, look, I just had enough of him all day. He was in my ear all day, calling me everything under the sun. I'm only human, and I just thought, get it up, you. Yeah.
But is there not a key where...
That's in the referee's report.
That's probably true, isn't it?
Graeme, you might know more about this.
All day. Get him off.
You might know more about this than me, but is it not the case that also as well that referees have a degree of sort of say in terms of appeals where they're like part of the review of it? I don't know.
I think if it's something they can. Well, one of my mates is a referee at a lower standard, and he when he talks about when he's having to do these reports and sending offs or any like specific incidents that have happened in a game that needed to be reported, he has said that he's been involved in if it's been quite serious stuff or like if there's been a brawl happened, like stuff like that. I think if it's just a single red card, it's unlikely that they're normally involved in it. It's like purely down to the referees association or whatever to like review it all and see what's the case. But if it's a serious incident, then he can be brought in as a sort of witness to it all.
I don't suspect there's not much grounds for appeal there because it's just a case of I wouldn't be appealing. I sent him off.
Before we finish on this, can I just because I know that people were not happy with or not exactly on the same page as me last night. That last night sums up Dylan Easton the whole of last season. He was booked 9 times last season, and I went through each game, and I'm pretty certain it was 7 or 8 of them were for mouthing back at the referee. Now, I'm sorry, but you can't be doing that. I think the other one was for diving or something, but he's not once been booked for a foul or for pulling a boy's jersey back or something. You cannot be going around acting like a little kid. Like I've played like sports growing up.
I think it's harsh to say that he's acting like a little kid though. Like
punching the ball in the air. Like
he's frustrated. It's the 90th minute of a game.
You can be
You're
frustrated,
chasing the game. You go for You go for a perfectly fair, and the referee gives it the other way. You're bound to get frustrated, man. It's a human being.
Callum Smith and Scott Brown are pretty close by in the highlights. The two of them just kind of go off like that and then walk away, like you should do. Like I'm not saying that Dylan Easton takes it well. I'm saying just run back and just say to yourself, "Oh, this is a joke" or whatever. You didn't go punch the ball in air, start swearing and run past the ref and stuff. That's what he's done.
He's not going in with the intention of getting a red card or anything like that. He's just acted in a human way.
He's not, but the way he acts a lot of the time when he's talking back to the ref is clearly not good enough. I've got to the point that I genuinely would start fighting him for this sort of stuff. And And I know I'm not the only one, because I seen it in the comments on Facebook last night on the Rovers post that everybody's starting to get quite a lot of notice of this, that all his bookings or stuff are for mouth and back.
I bet.
See, to weigh in with a wee bit of kind of in between, boys, just to mediate slightly. I don't actually think either of you are wrong. I think if he's mouth off at the referee and it's a red card, he probably needs to do better. But is that not kind of part of what makes Dylan Easton, and you take the rough with the smooth? Like if you're gonna enjoy all the flair and the majesty and the shithousery that you've got to, but at the same time, Scott's right. He's let the team down. He's going to be unavailable next week. Probably could have been avoided. But the one thing I am going to say, Scott, I'm going to pick you up on one thing you said. The minute we start taking the Facebook comments as the view of a rational Wraith Rovers fan, is the end of this show as it stands. Because
it was more just the fact that I'm not the only one picking up on this. That's what I'm saying.
Only joking.
Aye.
And that's, I think
if I'm talking about strange reactions, clapping somebody off when they get sent off.
Nah, that was fine for me.
I've done it once in my life, and we played St Mirren the year we won the league, and Jock McStay handballed it or made a fantastic save on the line, right? And he got sent off. Now, that was a pressure game. We were 1-0 up at that point. So, yeah, you saved the goal. That'll do. We'll clap you off. But to get sent off in that manner and for folk to stand up and clap.
Aye.
What's going on here? What's that all about?
I was raging. I don't know how folk could clap that. I was fuming at them for it.
I just don't get it.
Nah,
not for me.
I can kind of understand it. I think as much as anything, it's a sort of show of support, like almost like we support you anyway type thing. But I can't say I join.
And also, we don't think he should have been sent off there.
Yeah,
probably.
And I know that as well. And I think
plus as well the context of it being 2 minutes to go, as well. Like the game is pretty much dead and buried at that point. If it was like 60th minute and he does that, I don't think you get the same reaction.
Yeah, I think it's also a case of like over the piece. We said it with Jack Hamilton, where like scored the penalty, did brilliantly, missed all the sitters. Like, is he on a net positive or a net negative? Like Dylan Easton's probably still for that game on a net positive. Like, won the penalty, had a few chances. All right, got sent off in the 92nd minute or whatever. But I fundamentally, I agree with your point, Scott, but I think there's just an element of human nature that's impossible to defeat, really. Like if you could look at every single card that's ever been given out for dissent, not a single one of them from the player's point of view is justified. So it's like if you just shut up, you wouldn't have got that booking. But they've not learned that in 150 years of football or whatever.
But then
it's just it's a.
You get the Ross Milne of it all as well. Like people fucking you can praise them up to a certain point, and then it swings the other way, and then you're straight on them.
And that's like it's obviously it's a thing for each individual person. Like because there will be players who go their full career without ever picking up a card for dissent. And it's I
don't want them in my team.
No, can you actually can you get a lid on that without losing something or not? And
it's fine. I tell you, the one person that will lose out in all of this potentially is Dylan Easton. So I could be wrong, but I remember, did he not get? It was either a culmination of bookings or a red card last season, and he dropped out the team. And it took him about 3 or 4 weeks to actually get anywhere near getting back in the team. Sam Stanton's back and fit. So effectively, what Dylan Easton's done is we've had that whole discussion about should Easton be 10, should Stanton be 10. Well, Dylan Easton's just made Collins' mind up
for him. Yeah.
Do
you know what I mean? So potentially, you could be in a situation in 2 weeks' time where Dylan Easton's on the bench, not because he's being punished or fined or whatever, but because actually somebody's coming in to replace him and has taken his position and done a good job with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's a very frustrating end to that game. Just because actually, as you say, over the piece, I think there is an element of, and I think this is where, not to point fingers at the Facebook comments, but sometimes football fans in general have difficulty separating performance from results. And with a game like that yesterday, and listen, you can only do this for so long, but I'm quite comfortable to look at that game and go, that's hard luck. Like, that game, I say this all the time, people will be fed up with it, but like, if you replayed that game 10 times, we'd win 9 of them. so many more
the
chances.
Season, it would playoff place.
Like, so many more chances. Could have had a second penalty. The one goal that they got, which is really their only big chance in the game, is a huge deflection. That's football, so you have to go again. And as I say, you can only keep doing that for so long. At a certain point, you've got to just start putting points on the board by hook or by crook. But
yeah, I'm going to be bold here, right? I'm going to say I think that we will end up with at least double the points that we got in this first quarter in the next quarter. I fully believe that we'll improve from here on
it can't be
out.
hard to get worse.
I just can't see it. I just
To be fair,
So
I'm not quite as bold as putting a 16 point on the next. We'll wait and see. But
it's not
I
actually
do agree.
even that good.
It's not. Really. But I do agree, Duncan. Like that, we've been at a stage where we're not winning games and playing really poorly. And we're not there just now. So it's hard because ultimately we win games. That's what the job is. That's what they are there to do, and they're not doing it. But I think I'd be more worried if we were not winning games and looking at a game and going, where the hell does the goal come from? I mean, yeah, we're saying that in the sense of who's actually going to finish it. But it's not a case of, like that. I go back to that first game at Airdrie, that last game under Murray, where we could have played for 6 weeks, never created a chance. We were nowhere near it. We're not there anymore. We are in a better place than we were then. Not particularly better, but better. We'll see.
Yeah, Queen's Park are fourth, and I thought we comfortably outplayed them yesterday. Now, I do not see a world where we become one of the best sides in the division this season. Actually, I just don't. I think we're too far off. I think there's too much of a gap to be bridged to go and be. And now you're like, this is a funny division. It's always tight. Could you actually end up sneaking in fourth by the end of the season? Quite realistically. But, like last season, undeniably, we were one of the best sides in the division.
Yeah.
I just don't see that. I think we're too much of a work in progress. I don't see there being enough of a...
We could very easily be top four by Christmas, though.
Yeah.
We're not a million miles away. I think the one thing at the moment is that this league seems to be full of draws. Everybody seems to be drawn with each other, do you know what I mean? Or beating each other. There doesn't seem to be, with the exception of Falkirk at the moment, doesn't seem to be anybody who's kind of really putting down a marker and running away with it. And even they've dropped points over the last few weeks as well. Do you know what I mean? So there's not a Dundee United in the league. We've talked about this a lot. And look at Morton last year. Morton looked, for all intents and purposes, absolute cannon fodder last year. They went on a run of about 5 or 6 games and found themselves in and around the playoff places. It can change really, really quickly. You've just got to kind of hope that it happens, because we can't do anything about it.
See, for me,
sorry, Robbie, on you go.
Defies belief that Livy are on 19 points and they're up where they're at compared to how when they played us, I know they're unbeaten, and it just feels like they seem to be getting the results that we're looking to get, and yet they come out on top, and it's just these little small margins. Again, I think that I was really impressed with, again, we'll probably come on to man of the match, but Fordyce and Dabble, I thought that those two added so much in terms of the quality of our team yesterday. And yeah, with Stanton back, I'm keen to see what's going on. But I know that I've been saying this for a good wee while, that you wait for your players to get back and you hope that things even themselves out. And it's taken far longer than I would like, and very frustrating to be in that position. But yeah, I'm optimistic that I think that with a bit more of a settled team, that we could go off and do some damage. And I think that we just need to be patient, I would say.
Yeah.
Easier said than done.
Let's have a quick round the man of the match, because we might get a bit of positivity out of that, and then we'll wrap up for today. So, Robbie, we'll start with you. You mentioned Dabo and Fordyce there. Who's your top pick?
I would give it to. I would say for me it was Fordyce. I thought he was excellent. Just sort of commanding the play at the back and just being able to sort of control things. Didn't really put a foot wrong, as you say, other than sort of the build up to their goal, which he really couldn't do anything about. But yeah, just a hugely impressive display, and I think that was the right change to get him back in right from the start. Given a game without being too critical of Ewan Murray, I think that it's looked like he's needed a wee spell out the team. So yeah, I'm keen to see how that works moving forward. But yeah, Frankie Dabo, just a joy to watch, just a really good footballer. Just his physicality in this league is ridiculous. I know that we spoke after the playoffs about how Ross County, they've got this team of like 6-foot giants, and it feels like Big Frankie Dabo's one of those players where just takes it to another level in terms of you see him going shoulder to shoulder with players and you know that he's going to win it, and you've got that confidence that even he might let a player get by him, but he's got the pace to get back. And his decision making, his crossfield balls, yeah, just really, really enthusiastic about what he can add to the team. So those two for me would stand out.
All right, Graeme, for you?
Callum Fordyce as well. I thought he was outstanding. Tell you what, he looks a beast as well, doesn't he? He looks like a slightly shorter Sean Dennis. He looks like, yes, that kind of centre half every day of the week, please.
So good that he's broken Graham's internet.
Exactly. My internet's like that. How dare you say a defender's better than Dicko? But I just like the way he went about, even just calling for headers. He's there. The boys wiped out. He's won the header. Total leader. Just telling everybody where he wants him to be. Joy to watch. And I'll tell you as well, if he's had anything to do with the improvement in set pieces yesterday, then I'm all for that as well. Apart from a couple where Jameson's overhit them, but we seem to have more variety. We seem to have a better idea of what we're doing at set pieces as well. So yeah, Callum Fordyce and the set piece coach.
Perfect. Scott, your man of the match, please.
Yeah, I'd kind of go along the same lines with Fordyce and Dabo, to be honest. I thought the two of them were pretty solid all game, and the two of them were really involved in terms of like clipping balls like 30-40 yards across the pitch to whoever the sort of either Stevenson or Pollock it was for the first hour. So like I thought they two were really good. I would even throw Bruni could have been in with a shout as well. I thought he was pretty solid all game and controlling things. And as I say, had a few shots that on another day maybe catches one of them and they could go in the net. But if I was to go on one, I'd probably just give it to Fordyce.
All right, and Blair, yourself, please.
Yeah, hard to argue with any of that. I'd throw Kev's name in. He wasn't particularly busy, but what he did very well. At risk of upsetting people, Jack Hamilton and Dylan Easton both deserve a mention in my book. At the end of the day, I think the level we're at, if you're going to get a player who never makes a mistake, they're not going to be playing for us. It's one of the things, if Kev makes a mistake, we lose a goal. And for a striker to make a mistake, it's really no taking the chances. But Jack Hamilton, for me, yesterday did everything else except the one thing that he's probably most needed for. But I thought he was excellent. But yeah, probably Fordyce over the piece is a fair shout.
Yeah, it's like if you were only using, is it positive marking?
Yeah.
So you get points for all the good things that you do, but you don't get negative points for any of the bad stuff you do. Like Jack Hamilton did more good stuff than anybody
Massively.
else. But if, that's not how I mark. I'm taking points off for the sitters, I'm afraid. I think it's probably quite a reflection on the actual overall sort of team performance yesterday. That was a really, maybe not a really dominant, it was a fairly dominant performance. How we controlled vast periods of the game without really anybody kind of standing out. You're looking at, the right back had a decent game, one of the centre halves was decent. Again, hopefully that bodes well, that it's just actually the sort of baseline level of performance was pretty strong for this level. Hopefully that's a platform to build on. And next up,
can score a goal from open play, please.
That would be nice.
Please.
In the next quarter.
Yeah, do it in more than one game the next quarter. Get our 18 points. That'll be That'd be nice.
that's
16
true.
points.
That's actually frightening when you think about that. 1 and 9.
But then,
Well, we scored 3
if
in
we
that
start
one game,
scoring
to
them,
be fair. But
Yeah.
3 goals from open play in the opening quarter. All in
nobody's
one
happy
game.
about that, though. That's the thing. Like, not one
exactly.
person sort of saying,
No,
"Oh,
but
that's
it's just
acceptable."
it's actually really stark when you see it, or when you think about it as a statistic in and of itself. Like it's
What
the
was
results
it?
haven't been great, but that's alarming.
What was it Leslie said on the last podcast? That quote, "Perfection's the enemy of good." Like, just doesn't matter who's doing it. Just stick the ball in the net.
Yeah.
Easy for us
that's
to
the other
say as
thing as well, is
punters.
that like 3 penalties have gotten us 7 points as well. Like pretty fine margins with these things. And I mean, we've only got 8 points, so yeah. Anyway, that's quarter 1 done. Let's not dwell on that any longer than we already
quarter
have.
2 now, lads. Heads up. Let's go.
Yeah. So podcast wise, we'll be back later in the week to preview the trip to Almondvale. Kicks off quarter 2 next Saturday, and hopefully, presumably Thursday night, that'll be up for you to enjoy, depending on how much you like us arguing about back threes versus back fours. But we will hopefully see you then. Thank you again for listening today, and goodbye.